Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, and here we are, new media show, a week before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you, Rob, and
Yeah.
maybe an advance Happy New Year as well.
That's true because we won't be doing a show, I think, leading up to that time frame of the New Year's. So, yeah, this
No, and
is, I think, our final show for 2024.
yeah, and we'll be
Bye bye.
doing one almost immediately after
Yeah.
Christmas, but not. I do not think one before.
Yep.
So I tell you, Rob, I've been playing with all these online streaming platforms, StreamYard, Riverside, and Restream. And I got a message from Restream saying, "Hey, what do you think of our software?" And I said, "Great, except for one thing. It would be they would have it totally nailed if they had scenes just like Restream and StreamYard does, because in order for me to share a screen, I have to click share,
Yeah, you have to
click
go
the
through the whole
screen,
process. Yeah.
and then if I want to turn it off, whereas in StreamYard and Riverside, I can have the stream frame set, and I can just click between
Yep.
double shot like this and a shot that has a screen with one click, 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 back and forth.
Yep.
I can't do my regular tech
Yeah, it's
show
too hard.
on.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
slows you down too much, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to read. I've got the set it up over here in the screen where I can just matter of fact, I can use a hotkey and swap it, where Riverside, it just takes too many clicks and I'm discombobulated. I guess that's the word.
Well, Todd, there is one other option, and it's OBS.
Well, I have considered OBS.
Yep.
Um, you know, OBS is a bit of a learning curve.
It is. Oh, yeah.
So, maybe it would be okay to, to go down that road. Um, again, probably that's the one I should have went down the road with to begin with, because,
Yeah.
I just paid Riverside $400 or something for
Mm.
a year's worth of service or whatever, whatever the cost was. And I canceled StreamYard, so I'm on StreamYard until my subscription cancels. But I paid for two streaming services, and all three of them are, well, they're lacking.
Yeah.
If Riverside could fix this switching issue, and I replied back to him, I said, "This is the problem with it."
Mhm.
I said, "This is why." I said, "For just the interview show, it's perfect, but for
Yeah.
doing a live stream switching show, StreamYard and Restream have got it nailed, but they don't record for shit." Excuse my French.
Well, they did, take down the capability of, a consolidated export of a local recording, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you can get one file with, all of the inputs
Yep.
all consolidated into one. They shut that down
Yep.
for a while. I got the impression that they were going to retool it to make it more efficient, because it did take a long time to export those files. It took
Yeah.
I mean, for like an hour and a half show, which is oftentimes what I did, it could take an hour and a half to export it, and that's a long
Well,
time.
last week on this show, it took me literally, I waited 10 minutes and it was ready. I downloaded it,
Yeah, it's awesome.
and it's a little bit, they want you to edit in their platform,
Right.
and I have no desire to edit in their platform. So, I guess that's what is it now? $60 million or something like gets you, or I don't know how much money they've earned. They're not earned, but
Or
have
raised, you
invested.
mean raised, you
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
I
Mhm.
would think for $60 million they could make a better product. Um, this is a one trick pony. I think of everything I'm doing at Blueberry, and I'm like, holy crap! I could have built this for $60 million.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Todd. You probably could, right?
In Restream, they've got it really close. Again,
Yeah.
their studio is they stole or not stole, but they copied StreamYard.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you're right, maybe going back to the OG, going back to OBS is gonna be the key.
Yeah, at least until the platforms kinda get their act together a little bit more. I think currently StreamYard's probably the leader of the space right now, but they did take down that local recordings, which is what I was
That
advocating for when I started to work with them, and
that
they
just
they
yeah.
implemented it, but it was kludgy. It didn't work that well.
In Riverside's got that nailed. So
They got that nailed, but they got the other parts
yeah, yeah.
not what you need, right? Yeah.
So for me, I'm at a point where, and again, I know OBS will do everything I want it to do. Or, I haven't looked at Wirecast in a while either, so maybe even Wirecast.
Yeah,
Um,
that's probably a good one to look at. Yeah.
so anyway, here we are. It's nearing the end of 2024. Oh, I had a call with Spotify yesterday.
Hmm, interesting. A NDA call or a regular call?
I don't think it was under NDA, but I was pretty straightforward. They wanted to talk about their video strategy,
Oh, they did. Okay. Yeah. I
and
haven't got that call yet, Todd.
I was very adamant. Number one, you're screwing people with this overwriting of audio.
Mhm.
I said you maybe there's 3% of people that will qualify for your monetization at 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
I said that the and I told him how many customers we had that were using programmatic for not just advertising, but for pre-rolls of promoting their content.
Mhm.
It was a pretty frank conversation, and
Mm.
I even went into the poaching discussion.
Oh, yeah.
And you're coming to me, you want to work together, and every time my customers are over there and maybe asking a question on their support and you're poaching. I said, how does that incentivize me to work with you?
Well, and to also talk
Um,
well of you.
that's right.
Right. Yeah.
And and I was frank about the feedback, and they're adamant they are not going to separate um their I
What
said, you can fix
their
this.
video
I said,
strategy, you mean? Yeah.
right. And, they are all in, and it doesn't matter if you have programmatic and you chose to go this route. And she was touting higher CPMs. And I'm like, again, if you qualify, I said for
Well,
the
if they're
shows that
gonna compete with YouTube, they need to compete with YouTube because right now they're not. So that's the
so
yeah.
and then we had some other discussions that surrounding a future API and
Mhm.
my explicit thoughts about that. Um, so it was pretty frank, and as I think everyone listening to the show knows where I fall on the spectrum on this. So,
So did they
um,
say anything about pass-through? I mean, as a broad
pass
topic
through.
or
No,
as a
I'm on audio pass through, but they're never going to do video pass through. Never.
No, no, I was just thinking, this video strategy is trying to subvert the pass-through strategy is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah, because they want to
So,
control the experience. They want to make it a streaming experience.
yeah, and that's what they've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
They've always wanted to rehost the media files. That's what they've
Hmm.
always wanted to do, and this is just one way for them to chip a little bit more in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're all in, and I'm like, yeah, I've learned my lesson here. Um, a couple of things. Okay, I've obviously have customers to serve.
Mhm.
And if my customers come to me and in quantity and say, we demand this,
Mhm.
I might have to buckle and consider it, but I'm at the same point. I made it very clear, you know, and we shared some of the emails that we've gotten from our customers on this remarketing. I said you need to have a discussion with marketing
Yeah.
um, in regard to this poaching. So, and I said, I understand the offering's free. And there was some interesting commentary said about that too that I
It's a tough
won't go into.
that whole poaching conversation is a tough one because I think I think we all know it's a competitive marketplace, right?
Right.
And everybody's it's the difference between ethical practices and unethical practices at the end of the day. That's the real
Yeah, yeah.
argument. I think we all agree that the podcasters should have the option to go where they want
Sure.
to, but
Yeah.
it's the tactics that are used and the approach that's used is what's in question here.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
don't come to me saying we want you to implement this and that.
Mhm.
And then on the other hand, on the other side, you're saying, hey, come on over, migrate over here.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't bode well with me.
Mhm.
So anyway, it was, it I was, well, as Mike said, he said, well, you got that off your chest.
Finally,
And well,
man.
and I was in my,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, but it doesn't change
they,
much, right?
yeah. So, and I know there's some people out there saying, don't do it.
Don't. Yeah.
Um, but I think it goes into, you
I think
know,
you have to speak up. I think
yeah,
that's the only option that we all have as an industry is that we got to push back. I mean, that's what kept pass through is
yeah.
us, pushing back.
But they are
So
not going to go through pass through on video, and they are not. They are NOT going to
right.
support RSS for video ingestion. They are not. They are
Well,
NOT not.
I guess I guess if it was bigger, they probably might be more inclined. The problem is Apple has really kind of taken that out of the market to some degree. We'll have to see what Apple does here in the new year if we see them get more into video again. But that's up in the air right now. I don't know. But I think it is going to take Apple to make a bold step here for anybody else to pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, but again, going back to talking to customers, and this is what we do.
Hmm.
Mike and Dave and Sean on my support team are, every day. And then we are asking specifically, what do you want? What feature do you want? How can we help you?
Hmm.
And when you're talking to 50 to 100 customers, probably 50 customers a day,
Hmm.
maybe not that many, but maybe 40. And you're asking them, what do you want? And you're talking to them on the phone, video doesn't come up. And, we,
Though
of
I
course,
keep
we were,
hearing it everywhere, Todd. I mean, if you go
okay,
and
but
look at
you're
all of
hearing,
the
you're hearing
2025,
it in the,
okay.
you're hearing it in the video realm. You're not
Mm,
hearing it. We're not hearing it as a podcast host.
oh, okay. Well, that's a separate kind of
Right.
distinct pot, right? But I think more broadly, if you read across all of the 2025 predictions, articles, and quotes, and across all these different platforms, whether it's Quill or if it's a lot of the publications out there, they are touting just like what I have in our outline here. This came directly from Chat GPT. These are the leading topics that are leading the discussion that's happening on other websites and other media properties about podcasting. And it's like this dominance and this shift towards video, right? Which
Well,
is the
again,
number one topic. I mean,
it
it's
may be a number one topic, but again, I think it's advertising driven largely.
well, yeah, but at the same time, um, I don't know a lot of podcasters that are really focused on monetizing their videos, though. I mean, it seems like
Oh,
on the
ev
podcasting space,
everyone that's creating content, I look at the massive surge of people that have turned on programmatic.
I know,
Money
but
is
that's
all
all
in
audio is
oh,
what I
but
was trying to say is that the emphasis around monetization is still primarily focused on audio. But if you
uh,
shift this over to, like a YouTube type platform or a Spotify platform, that's where the conversation kinda changes, right? It's getting monetization from that platform, not a central advertising strategy like with podcasting, right?
well, most of the people that are
So
doing video are baking in their own ads already. They
well,
are
they're
they're
doing
used
live host reads
yeah,
is what
of
most
course.
of them are doing,
So
right?
it's the same strategy.
Well, yeah, though though there's more of a dependence on the like the AdSense advertisement on YouTube and the
If you
advertisements that would
qualify.
be surrounding it on Spotify.
Yeah, if
It
you qualify.
well, yeah, but that's what I'm talking about is that's what people are talking about are those differences between podcast
I agree,
advertising
but the
and
majority don't ever qualify for a penny from YouTube and or Spotify.
well, but that's not
There's
really what I'm
3%.
talking about here, Todd.
Well,
So
if you're talking about Google AdSense ads, it is. You have to qualify for that
I,
revenue.
I'm not disputing that. That's
Okay.
obvious. That's in the market, and that was my comment. If you go back to our conversation about Spotify, is that Spotify wants to compete with YouTube. They need to actually compete with YouTube because right now they're not. And if they don't, they're going to lose. There's no point in them going down this video path if they don't compete with YouTube because everybody's just going to go to YouTube.
Well, what it is they if you don't hit their mark,
Right.
they're just going to monetize the content around you and they're going to make lots of money. And the media creator is going to get zero.
Yeah.
And just like on YouTube,
But they're
if you
not
don't
gonna get a lot of
qualify,
people watching video on Spotify unless they get a good aggregation of content, right? And
well,
if
they are, they're all in.
I know, but the last number I saw was 250,000. So if you
Oh,
contrast the ha
250,000 there, 250,000 shows doing video? Well,
uh,
then there's only 400,000 active podcasts, so that seems like a pretty good number.
yeah, but I'm talking about a video strategy as well. So if you
Yeah.
contrast the 250,000 to what Spotify is doing to the
Oh, yeah,
10
yeah.
million on YouTube,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Oh,
like, they're playing with peanuts
well, I
here.
think there's more than 10 million shows on YouTube that are
Yeah, there probably is. I
potentially
I just know it's in the multi-millions where
yeah.
Spotify is just saying, "Well, we have 250,000, yay!" But
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
in
yeah.
the video market, that's pennies to dollars.
And
So,
we also,
yeah.
yeah, again, I think my opinion is 2025 videos, the chickens are come home to roost in regards to people figuring out if their investment. I have no doubt there's going to be a number of shows that are going to say, let's try this.
Mhm.
But then they're going to have to look at if number one they qualify for video or for advertising. Number one, if and number two, um, is it pay enough? Even if they do qualify, to make it worth the time and effort to create quality video.
Well, it's a lot
Uh,
easier to qualify on YouTube than it is on
oh,
Spotify.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
this conversation is really about YouTube. It really isn't. I mean, let's be honest. Spotify is a bit player in the video side currently. They want to be something bigger, but they're not
Yeah.
really that big yet. So
So, we'll see. Video's going to be in the conversation. I have no doubt.
yeah.
I and sadly, we're going to have to talk about it to much the chagrin of many people listening. But I
Well,
think that there is a bigger thing happening in podcasting that potentially could be really the true story of what's heading into 2025. I think we're
okay.
just going to continue to hear, but again, I temper the yeah, it's just obvious where I stand on this. I've been doing video for years. I've made a nary a penny from any platform on video. not
Yeah,
a
but you
penny.
haven't been focused on it either, Todd. So
Well, but I've also done 1,000 plus videos on YouTube
I
and
know,
have
but
made
just
nary
making
a penny.
content doesn't
Yeah.
make a strategy work.
Well, exactly.
So
So this
right.
is where the majority of content creators are like me. They don't have a video strategy.
Yeah. But that's part of the new discussion that's happening now is that these bigger content creators and newer ones are coming into the
Bigger.
space wanting to have no, not just bigger, but increasing numbers of people that are thinking about a video strategy in tandem with their audio strategy. And what that's doing is that's putting a lot of pressure on content creators. And that's part of this changing discussion. It's not right now, it's not entirely all about being a podcaster. It's all about being a content creator now.
I think the pressure really boils down to peer. Again, I think, and again, it's the majority of the people
Hmm.
are chasing dollars, and they think that they're going to do better doing video than they are audio. And
I
in
th-
the end,
yeah,
great content will. I've talked to many people that at the same time have said, well, it's easier to gain traction on video.
right.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So the what I was hoping to accomplish in this episode today was to
Sure.
talk about what people are talking about out there, right? Currently, right now, what the general consensus of what people think about what's coming in the next year, and then what I wanted to dive into is what we think is going to happen versus what
Oh yeah.
everybody else thinks is going to
Yeah.
happen. And we've kind of gone down
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
path of talking about
Well,
details before we've actually set
obviously,
that up.
number one is the video conversation is going to continue. And I think we about
Yeah.
killed that to death. One of the things I think is going to happen is podcasting, in my opinion, is in 2024 cemented its position in the media space.
Right.
And I think that as we move into 2025, people are going to take advantage of that and really start setting themselves up, not only number one for the next election, which, it's only 2 years away in America, but also understanding that the power um, podcasting has in getting the full story out on something. And maybe people have kind of had an aha moment, although we've known this for years. So I think part of the what will happen in 2025 is that um, we will we will have become the mainstream media.
Yeah. And I think that increasingly the advertising markets around podcasting are starting to realize that. And there's a lot of layers to this. They're going. I don't know, Todd, if you ever listened to the Media Roundtable podcast with Dan Granger, but in,
I don't listen to his
he's
show.
the CEO of Oxford Road that did
Yeah,
a
because I'm not focused on advertising. So
right that recently did a merger with was it the Veritas folks, or not Veritas but Veritone, um, to make the largest podcast ad buying agency. So I occasionally will tune into that podcast to actually listen to them all talk that are heavily entrenched in the podcast advertising market and what they're seeing out there. And it's really fascinating to hear the things that they're talking about now, especially after the election. it's it was a different conversation before the election, and now it's a different conversation after the election. And it's really interesting to talk about that from from the standpoint of what is being thought about in that area of the market around um, the ad buyers, the brands, the networks, how a lot of the big ad buyers are not wanting to necessarily buy wide, which I think we both know has been one of the problems, is
right,
that they're increasingly focused down on shows that they feel safe buying into because they've historically brought ROI, and we've seen this simultaneous reduction in in the realization that brand safety and suitability is a criteria that should be as highly valued as it was just 2 months ago. So it really speaks to the changing landscape
So that
of
doesn't bode well for a lot of podcasts.
well, from that perspective, yeah, but it's also a pullback from brand safety and suitability platforms to
Oh,
some
so you're saying
degree.
they're pulling back.
Well, the brands are focusing down on shows that they have a history with, that they know haven't created a problem for them from a brand perspective, and have always brought strong ROI. And that seems to be what's happening too. And then there's also this growing tension too around, and we've talked about this many times on the show, around ad load. And ad load is increasing, especially amongst the big shows. So what we're seeing is, in the research, is starting to show that there's pushback. And I think we've talked about this on the episode before, that there's increasing concern about pushback around ad load. It's the number of spots, how many spots per break, how many pre-rolls, how many mid-roll spots is the increasing conversation. And now they're talking about, that there's some sort of a limit to how many minutes of ads in a podcast now. And it's
Well,
and so
surprise, surprise, surprise.
it's really ironic how this is starting to switch. We were talking about a lot of these same ideas like 6
2 years
months
ago.
ago, right?
Longer
Well,
than that.
probably further back than that.
Yeah.
And now that the political landscape has changed, now brand safety and suitability is not so much on the table anymore.
Well,
So, it's
how the winds change.
yes, how the winds blow in different directions. But I'm not sure it really bodes well for the industry. I know that the industry is really, at least on the advertising side, is very focused on, trying to figure out, well, there are people saying that the advertising market globally for podcasting is going to hit like 4 billion this
Yeah,
year
whatever.
globally, but in the US, to narrow it back, is still going to struggle to get over 2 billion. So which is what we've been talking about for all this time, because as you see these big brands pulling back from running a lot of diversity in in the number of shows that they're running their campaigns in, that's narrowing the amount of ad buys. And and but at the same time, I don't know what's happening with CPMs, because CPMs are now all of a sudden kind of tight-lipped now. Nobody wants to share those anymore, if you've
Mm.
noticed.
Yeah, I noticed Libsyn stopped publish them.
Yeah.
Well,
And
because what it is they're going down.
yeah,
They're going
it
down.
is. It is. And it's also, one of the factors here is ad load. That's what these buyers and these folks on this podcast are talking about. It's like, well, if you have a big show and you want to have, you know, 2 ads and a pre-roll, 2 ads in 3 mid-roll breaks in a 45-minute show, and then 2 ads at the end, and then try and throw in a couple of host reads, you know, you've, you've got quite
You
a
got a problem.
right, exactly. And it's going to give your audience this perception that, God, there's a lot of ads in podcasts now.
Well, it's already been the case, and we've
Yeah.
talked about this for more than a year.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, what we're monitoring what's coming across in programmatic,
Yeah.
and my CPMs are going up in programmatic, and that
Well, because there's fewer ad load in your content
yeah,
too.
and we purposely limit it.
And that's what was talked about on this too, is that these buyers are increasingly looking for opportunities to run in shows that have fewer spots.
But they're not willing to pay more.
Well, that's the tension of the medium now. It's like, I'm a podcaster and I'm going to make maybe more if I cut back to maybe 4 ads an episode, but am I going to make the same if I have 8 ads?
Rob,
And yeah,
it's also a little bit about being greedy.
well, it is.
So
And yeah,
so let me just, my show, my Geek News Central show,
it's all about greed at the end of the day.
I have done consistently good, not consistently great. I've had I had some months in years past where I was making $13,000 to $15,000 a month
Hmm.
with GoDaddy. Those were incredible months for
Yeah.
one ad
Right.
and for consistently running in a show.
Hmm.
But the majority of those months of running a single ad was in the 3 to 4K round, which
Hmm.
most podcasters would be thrilled
Sure.
to make that kind of money from one advertiser for their show,
Hmm.
regardless of the CPM for the average podcaster. And I call Geek News Central an average podcast
Hmm.
because it's not doing astronomical numbers. It's not doing you know, and again, for consistency, it's been good. Would I love to make more money? Well, everyone would love to make more money. Um, but it's just and it hasn't pissed my audience off. I haven't disgruntled them. I do the minute and a half or whatever I do for my host read. Um, in fact, the copy for the host read did not change for like 3 years. It was the same copy
Yeah.
and still maintain. So I'm an outlier, obviously, but if you're running 5 ads, you're just being greedy and you're disenfranchising your audience.
Well, but that from these ad buyers, from when I was hearing them talk about, that's actually a light load. So that's at the optimum end of the spectrum. And
YouTube
but
doesn't even force that many ads on you.
but there's also these standards that the Oxford Road has come up with that have like recommendations. So they have their own kind of like standards that they're pushing out to the industry. I don't know if you knew that, Todd, but they're pushing out to push back against this ad load increase that's going on, and even to the
Oh,
level of saying for each mid-roll break, um, am- a maximum of 1 minute of ads. So per break. So it can be a 15 second, could be or could be two
well,
15
if you're do,
second
if you're
and a
doing
30.
if you're doing that type of a load, the break should be 30 seconds. If you're doing 6, 7, first of all, I quit listening to shows. I have purposely listened to some shows that I wanted to listen to that I had never listened, and the ad load was so high. I said, "To hell with this."
Yeah,
It sounds like it's worse than TV.
yeah.
So, and again, they're going to have to figure it out. I know what we decided, and we've never had a podcaster come back and said, "You're not serving enough programmatic for my show." Not one.
I don't think they even knew that they could, right?
Well, we tell them what we
Right.
limit it to. We're
Yeah,
very
exactly.
clear in our documentation,
Yeah,
and no one has said, "Hey, turn me on to unlimited."
yeah.
Um, Also, the podcasting 2.0 folks, and I'll make this a prediction for 2025. They're getting and it may not happen until mid 2025, but they're getting the decentralized monetization model kind of fixed. Matter of fact, I had conversations with Get Alby this week,
Yeah.
and
I've got to
and make,
transfer my wallet out of there. Right.
and making well, you can create a hub, but it costs you 11,000 sats a month um, if you want to use their hub, or you run your own node. And most podcasters are not going to be able to run their own node. Blueberry customers can have a wallet. There is no pressure to push to a hub right now. They will let you know you should. And there's a reason for that, legal wise, because of regulatory money handling rules. Um, that they have to push you into running your own hub. It's just a thing. But if we get this other piece fixed, you'll be able to use listeners
So
will
when
be
you
able to
say a
use.
hub, are you talking about a cold wallet?
I don't know what you want. I basically I run my own node for Geek News Central.
So
Basically, that
yeah, so
node
what does that
runs.
mean?
I have a
Node.
Raspberry Pi that runs all my I have my keys and everything on that Raspberry Pi,
Okay,
and
it's just a memory device is what it is.
well, it runs, it does the transactions. I can send satoshis and receive satoshis and Bitcoin, and I have my wallet all on my own. I control it. I don't use a third party. I have a Get Alby wallet,
Yeah, I
but I
do
don't
too.
send
Yeah.
any money over there right now. I send it all to my personal node, or hub, or whatever you want to call it. So what um, Get Alby has done is you've got a wallet with them now. They want you to have a hub so that you control and manage your own hub, and it's really pretty automated. But the end goal is that you are basically paying for that service, and you because they are no longer the money transfer agent. I don't know the full rules, but
Yeah.
it basically, it gets them out of the situation where the government says, well, you're hosting all this money and you don't know who these people are, and people could be money laundering. And so they had to move to this new model. But what's happening with podcasting 2.0 is they're working on a new system. It's called Bolt 11 or something like this, and where you'll have the ability as a listener to use something like Stripe to be able to send donations, micro donations to other podcasters. And again, don't even let me get into the technical discussion because I don't understand it yet.
Well,
So
and
maybe,
that's one of the limitations of all this stuff is the complexity and the
yeah. So
misunderstandings that people have about. I mean, because I've got a cold storage wallet, I've got Bitcoin, I've got
yeah,
Satoshis and Alby and all this kind of stuff. But trying to figure out how to move it out of Alby to
right, right.
somewhere else.
You don't
What the
have to move it out.
typical recommendation is to transfer it into a cold storage, which would mean that it's aligned with your Bitcoin.
Well, again, it is already. So
Well,
the
it is,
hub,
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, but
In
currently, Alby is storing Satoshis. My
Right.
other account is storing actual
And they've
Bitcoin,
got a way with
but
this new
they
hub system to be able to
right,
cash out. So you
right,
can just uh, you can
kinda
send money.
send
Yeah.
money, alright,
It
and I
makes it
can
easier to get stuff out. So, but it again,
yeah,
it's 11,000 sats
yeah,
a month to be able to run that. So you either
mm,
have enough sats coming in through donations, or
right, or
um,
just drains you.
so yeah. And on Blueberry, I don't run I
Right,
use their hub, and then for my stuff, I run my own. Um, anyway, long story short, that's not for everyone to do that, obviously.
mhm,
Um, Matter of fact, I don't recommend it. So that we've got it figured out on Alby for our podcasters. We had a long discussion this week. So I think
there's a
value
lot
for
of
value.
people interested in Bitcoin now, though, so,
Yeah,
as you
and
might
we've had a
imagine.
huge, we still have a huge number of people that are doing this value for value model.
Mhm,
And matter of fact, we received last week a bunch of um, inputs from people. Um,
and I
you
saw
know,
that, True Fans has the ability of a wallet now.
yeah, and basically they
They're
I
saying
won't even go into the depth of this, but Sam's done everything he can to make it real easy for
yeah,
people, for listeners to participate. Um,
yeah.
what was another thing on your list, Rob? I've got my own prediction list. What was some of the things you had?
Well, just this, I think we've talked about some of this stuff in the past, but I don't know if you've been reading all the other predictions that people are making, but it's quite a huge number of people that are getting in the predictions business this year,
No,
is what I've noticed. And
that
so,
makes for good SEO.
right, right, I guess so, yeah. Um, but this whole question around the expanding meaning of the word podcast is that
Uh,
kind
it's
of
already that's sailed.
well, it has. It's just increasingly meaning something different to audiences than it does to content creators.
No,
So,
it's
yeah,
it's that ship has sailed.
yeah.
They're making a prediction on that.
Well, I am
Oh,
saying that it's going to keep expanding, and that the creator economy, which is the term podcasting, is absorbing into that.
I think
Um,
it's already been redefined on the
yeah,
listener side.
and it's, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's other folks that are saying that we could see some platforms just start thinking about this concept of shows, versus podcasts.
Oh, I think they already have.
Right. No, but I mean, start to change the name and the interface. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
So we'll see. You know, whenever I talk about the term podcast, usually I'm talking about what the listener or the viewer experience is, not so much what the podcaster is thinking about. But that's what I wonder is if we're going to see a transition away from the word podcast as we see this competition happen with all these platforms that are playing in the space of podcasting now that are not RSS based podcasting. But anyway, I mean,
that's only
we'll see.
two.
What's that?
Well, that's really only two platforms.
No, I think if you expand your perception of what the creator economy is, it definitely includes a lot of other platforms. Like TikTok to X to
Well, TikTok's
Rumble
gone on January 19th.
to there's other platforms out there that are supporting podcast distribution.
Well, again, I
Then
think TikTok's gone on January 19th. So take them out of
mm,
the equation.
I don't know. I
I
saw a
think there's
quote
a
from
better than
Trump
50.
saying he
Yeah,
may save it.
yeah, I think there's a better than 50% chance that it's gone. He says that, but he says there could be other platforms that will step in to replace it. So
Hmm,
I'm giving 51% it's gone.
really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. I might be wrong, but it's gonna piss 150 million people off. And maybe
Ye-
make creators think twice about where they build their brands.
Well, the exact quote that I heard from Donald Trump was he said that there was a lot of people in that generation that voted for him.
Right. Right. But he also at the same breath says there'll be other platforms that can step up and do this. So, you know, got
I
to know
think
the
they
full
already
context, right?
exist, don't they? I think they already
Uh,
exist.
yeah, YouTube and Instagram and
Yeah, that's what I
whoever
mean.
else does reels.
And Facebook and yeah.
Yeah, but again, a lot of those creators on TikTok said they're not moving there because they hate YouTube and they hate Facebook. So we'll
Well, then
see.
they're out of luck, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Um,
So anyway,
we continue to see it that obviously the AI piece is going to continue to grow. Um,
yeah,
I think that I think it's tempered a little bit. The initial excitement has been, but people are starting to realize how powerful of a tool it can be to help with the creative process and also to help with the post production process. So I think it's going to do
yeah.
well.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's going to continue in 2025. I think it'll be a pretty mainstream discussion.
Yeah, AI is going to have an increasing role. I think looking forward, that it's kind of hard to predict how soon the impacts of that are going to be, but I can see it really being transformational in a lot of ways, beyond what we've already seen.
Yeah.
I know that there's talk that artificial general intelligence or on the cusp of super intelligence is coming within 18 months, is what I've heard quoted from some experts. Um,
Well, I think agents will be here before
agents,
that.
yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be the big revolution,
Yeah.
is the
If
agent
if
technology.
the agents do what, and again, it could be
Well, you can
two or
already
seven.
do a lot of stuff, Todd, with those
Yeah, I
agents
know.
already.
No, I know.
I've been playing
But they're
around with
not
them.
truly agents yet, per se. Not agents you can trust explicitly. That's for sure.
Well, the agent technology has to be able to get access to large aspects of your data in order to fully function
Right.
properly. Is what I've seen. I've seen one that was built for Google Chrome on the Google platform. It's like the Go browser agent. Have you seen this, Todd?
No.
It basically takes all the information that it has access to in your Google Docs and your Google kind of
Scary.
area, and can actually get an email in and actually respond to the email based on the information it can gather, um, and what you tell it to do, and it will respond to all your emails, and it'll do everything
Yeah.
for you.
Well,
It'll automate
yeah.
all these things.
Okay. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Well, that's
Um,
where it's
I'm not.
going.
I'm not letting any agent respond to my emails and autonomously do that. It's not happening.
And then the ability to train your own agent
Well,
that
that's been
is
going on for a while.
no, but
I
this is part of that, right? It's
oh, I
got to
have my
know you as well
I have
as
my
you
own
know yourself,
doppelganger. I have
right?
my own doppelganger already as
You
a
have your own
GPT.
doppelganger already.
It is. Yeah.
So what does it do though, Todd?
I've fed it the information I want to feed it, and it writes stuff for me.
Okay, so you've written prompts then,
So I've given it all of my blog posts. I've
right?
given it access to stuff that I've written that is already online,
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, if you take this information and then, when I want a topic written on, you can write to that topic and then I'll go in and edit it. It writes in my voice.
Yep.
Digital doppelganger. Everyone should have one,
And
but
then
I
the
control it.
the other tool that I can see being a powerful thing is an agent that books guests and
Good luck.
responds
Yeah. Oh,
to
those.
to general inquiries.
I'm already getting spammed by those types of things, and they're worthless at this point. It's because
Yeah.
I get requests from Podcast Insider and Geek News Central for guests every day. I get 20 emails a day saying, "Hey, we'd love to be a guest on your show," and I'm like, I don't have guests.
Well, that's part of where the intelligence comes into, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
Because
stupid.
that doesn't sound like a very smart agent
No,
that would actually just spam people of sorts. It needs to be able to analyze the compatibility and find the contact information and go through proper channels, right? To to do that.
just well, Rob, just wait till quarter 1, and well, we already announced it. We're launching a
And that's just a crack in the proverbial opportunity.
It's
To
about
actually just
becoming a full service podcast hosting company and making sure that you provide everything you can so they don't have to pay for third party services. So I think you'll see Guest Match Pro coming from Blueberry in quarter 1.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So and and there's other aspects of this too. I mean, you look at all these platforms, like a Descript and other ones that are taking care of certain aspects of your post production. And
well, you look at our partnership we just did with Adobe.
well, I don't
You
know what the
know,
full scope of that is. So,
well, it's basically an extended free trial and then more to come.
well, that doesn't tell me what it does, Todd. That's just your offer.
You haven't used Adobe Podcast Premium or Adobe Express Premium?
No,
Okay.
no,
It's
I
a
haven't yet.
recording platform, just like this platform, except it does it
Yeah,
for
but
audio.
does it do automated editing?
It has an AI platform, yeah.
Okay. So it can pull out
So it again,
silences and
it's in its early days,
okay, well, yeah.
so it's not as fancy as the script.
Okay.
But again, don't bet against Adobe.
Nobody's betting
I
against
wouldn't.
anybody. I'm just saying that these tools
Oh
are
yeah,
are coming, and there's going to be processes that are going to be established
I-
by these higher end
but I do like
models.
Adobe's approach that they want to make sure that the audio still sounds natural and not compressed like
Well,
the script
that's
does.
well, that is a tweak.
Well, then they should tweak it because I choke every time I listen to a Descript edited show
Yeah. Well, yeah.
because it's obvious that people don't breathe anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's also obvious that they don't say a lot of ums and ahs anymore either, right?
Mhm. Exactly. And we're all robots. One thing that you made a comment on a thing that Cridlin had posted, which actually made my list, um, about podcaster advocacy. I'm calling it podcaster advocacy,
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah. Well, I think we've talked about that on this show for many years, haven't we?
well, the $7,000, fine for having a show on a directory, from an open RSS feed, and that Italian group that
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and they've gotten a little bit of egg on their face because they had someone else's logo on their website that they weren't supposed to be, and you will pay. Maybe podcasters will start to wake up a little bit,
Oh, there's
and
always been people out there that want to kind of push the envelope and push towards being a little bit of a scam, right?
well, I think creators are going to push back. And I hope they demand better terms and ethical practices and transparency.
Yeah.
And we've been heavily focused for many many years on privacy. Not only that, ethical AI. We actually have you know a statement in that regard. Free
So
speech. Yeah,
so did you draw AI content lines?
we basically talk extensively about what our system does and what our system doesn't do.
Yeah, but are you guys taking a position on what should be identified publicly?
Um, we have not publicly came out with that, but I've been very vocal and gotten
Yeah.
massive pushback from creators that don't want to disclose. So there has to be something that's flagged. There has to be, in my mind, I know what that looks like. But if you really get granular on it, there can be 7 levels of disclosure.
Yeah. How would
Um,
that ever be created and
It
enforced?
can. It's self-reporting, and at this point, it can't be. It probably can be partially detected,
Hmm.
um, but again, I think when it goes back to podcaster rights, um,
What are
there
we
is
going to
no
do
like
when the AI
mechanism.
gets so good, Todd? We can't tell.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
But I
That's,
still, I still think that it's got a ways to go before it sounds like a human. It's 50% of the way there at this point. So it's a couple of years, sure, it could really,
yeah.
you know, but the thing is, a robot can't do live. So all these people talking about
Yet.
doing video, well, all these people talking about doing video, and they're not going to be able to use AI to do video, not using their me,
They
not
could
and
they
that's
could create
probably
a live AI generated version of you.
of course, and that could be entertaining if it's completely an AI, if it's disclosed.
Right. Yeah.
But do you want your likeness to be saying stuff for you that you can't control? Not me.
Well, that's an interesting question. I would love to kind of pull that one apart.
Well,
Because is it really
say
true
something,
if the AI fully understands you and has been fully indexed in all your
but I'm not.
writings and all your opinions? Just like with this
I,
show, Todd, we've done what 600 plus episodes where we've talked about podcasting. If a platform were to index all this,
yeah,
which one has, um, what would they know about us?
I've always said I needed a clone, but also I want a clone that I can control. So
Yeah,
we'll see. I
that,
think again we're going to see more podcasters
yeah.
um, driving for more rights, but it's not codified, unlike music artists where it's codified. So does there need to be a political movement to codify all
Mhm.
digital creator rights, podcaster rights, YouTuber rights, and
Yeah.
all this content? I don't know. You know, And we strive for openness, but then do we want CRM? I don't think we want not CRM, digital rights management. I don't think we want DRM. At least I don't. But will podcasters start to unionize? Who knows what they're going to do?
Well, that's part of what James Cridland raised as a topic was,
Yeah.
having a professional association that kind of sets standards for the industry.
Well, there's a couple of them that are trying.
Yeah, the Podcast Professional Association is trying to
Yeah.
get off the ground,
And
but
then
beyond
Sounds
that, that's
Profitable
about
is
the only
trying to
one that
make a
sounds profitable, right?
they're trying to shift.
Yeah.
So, but again, um, it's not, they're focused on advertising. Sounds Profitable is. So that's largely, and they've got a great audience over there that's their focus. So, do we have I'm being an advocate for podcasters when I talk to big companies
Hmm.
who as a hosting provider. I just wonder if other hosting providers are just saying yes ma'am, yes sir, or are they being advocates and advocating for podcaster rights? We're very, very, very vocal about it when we talk to people. I
So
don't
when you
know if
say
other
podcaster rights, in the context of who are you talking to? You talking about advertisers?
no, I'm talking
Talking
to
about
big
platforms?
platforms.
Platforms. Okay.
Yeah. It's like the conversation I had with Spotify,
Yeah.
advocating that, hey, in this strategy, for those that choose, you're screwing up their DAI, you're screwing up their programmatic, screwing up their um, their promotion stuff,
It-
and
Do you think that
and
those
having
moves on the part of Spotify and what we're increasingly seeing through working with a YouTube platform, it's going to push the industry into more of a like a music licensing model?
I don't think people have enough guts to stand up and say no. They're so allured by the opportunity. Again, it's the trade-off. The trade-off is, do I want to be in this platform and potentially be exposed to audience that I don't have and grow my show
Hmm.
for free? Does that have enough value for the trade-off? Well, music artists said no. The trade-off's not enough. You have to pay to stream my shows, even though they get paid, Jack. So the music artists were ingrained from the early days of Napster and everything else that happened to say you're going to use my content, you will pay me. So it came out of a business model that was based on profit to begin with. Podcasting never came out of you know when you had people cutting albums, they had representatives for distribution and sale and blah blah blah. It was all a whole marketplace chain to make sure that artists that were successful and had platinum and gold and all these other records got paid and became rich.
Yeah, but the
Now, not all
model that
artists have.
I'd say that the model that we're living in today is the fact that the content creator has to really to pay to have distribution, right?
Well, they're paying in content capital.
Well, that plus they're actually, I mean, even use X as an example. If you want to stream live to X, you have to have a blue check mark, right? Which is
Right.
what, $8 a month or wherever that is. I mean, you can't get your
Yeah.
content onto X unless you have a paid premium account.
So it's a wild dream of mine that shows would stand up and say, "Hey, using my content, you're getting a free ride." I- But again, 70, 80% of podcasters are not making any money anyway, so they don't care. So the trade-off they get in exposure is enough of a value for them to stay there. So, it's a pipe dream to think that podcasters will revolt.
Well, that
And
and if that does happen, it's going to be with the really big shows.
yeah, with the big shows.
Which, if I think back to the early days of podcasting, um, I used to work for a company called Melodio in Seattle, which was a
Yeah.
very early podcast distribution platform on mobile phones. This was back in 2005. I had to do a licensing deal with NPR to get their podcasts
Yeah.
into my distribution platform. It wasn't necessarily a paid thing. We didn't
Right,
have to
right.
pay, but we had to actually come to an agreement, and the content was going to be used and presented in a certain way, and there was structure behind it, right?
Yep.
Um, Today it's like the wild wild west, right? It's kind of like, people just throw content around like it's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And it does start, and as we look at these platforms like YouTube and Spotify increasingly wanting to host it themselves and monetize it themselves, they're basically profiting on the back of people that have taken time and effort to create the content. But
But
there's no clear kind of compensation for that.
well,
Or
it's not an issue until you add video. You still can monetize your
well,
content.
but video is going to push the conversation is what I'm
Again,
trying to
if
lead
you're
to
an
here.
audio producer, you can still run your programmatic and you still get paid for
Right.
having your content on Spotify.
Yeah.
And if you want to maintain that, then you set a second channel, which Spotify does not want you to do. They're not going to stop you. Then you have a second channel with video only, which I advocate for,
Hmm.
especially if you're a small content creator that will never make that hurdle. How are you going to get hurt? You're not.
I don't know that we know for sure still if you can create a second channel on
Yeah,
the
you can.
same name of
No.
a podcast.
Yeah, you can. You can go into Spotify and create a new listing with the same name, no issue. And you
But
just can label it video, no issue. You can do it
okay,
all
did
day
you
long.
hear that from them?
No, she already knows that's happening. That's what they talked about in the call.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah,
you heard
people
on
are
the
already
call?
doing that.
Okay.
And smartly so if they don't want to interrupt their audio revenue.
Right.
And if you're not qualifying and they don't do CPM, by the way, they do RPM. And I couldn't get a ratio of what CPM to RPM really
I
meant.
think it's the same.
No, it is not.
It's
It
not
is
the
not.
same.
It is absolutely not the same.
So is it only different based on how it's counted or the
It's
dollar
counted
amount
based
or
it's counted based upon did someone listen to the ad and was how long someone listened. It's not a CPM model at all. It's an RPM model and it's made up of many, many factors that she wouldn't even fully define.
oh, okay.
And I asked, what is the ratio? Is it 50% CPM, 75%? And she wouldn't tell me what that ratio was. She said, we don't publish that.
So
So it's obviously lower.
RPM stands for revenue per thousand. Is that what that means?
Hmm.
Or does it mean reach per thousand?
Maybe it's reach per thousand or revenue per thousand or something like that. Maybe it's reach. So again, it's not CPM. So again, then all right, the CPMs might be great, but what if you have 1 million views, but they only pay you for 500,000? So it's all hocus pocus.
Right. So if they're evaluating it based on how many ads were delivered to a verified listener,
And there's a
then
ratio between premium and non-premium. There's some factor there. So again, I can step on the pedal as much as I want in that model. So it just means more money for Spotify.
Hmm.
So going back to predictions, I think niche podcast networks are going to expand. Seen a lot of success with Daily Wire and folks like that. I think we're going to see more niche podcast networks really consolidate, and it just makes sense that
Yeah, I
it
think
would.
we've seen a couple of the large podcast networks acquiring smaller podcast
Yeah,
networks. I think the Evergreen Podcast Network has acquired the the rights to individual podcasts as well as networks of shows. Is what I'm saying. So there is a consolidation on the content side. Um,
one thing that with that we're going to have to do as a community, and all apps are going to have to get on this bandwagon. They're just going to have to in order to move the space forward.
mhm.
The interact and Tom Webster alluded to this in his Sounds Profitable piece today, or was it yesterday? That we have to have enhanced interactivity. So um, the podcasting 2.0 has a mechanism. It hasn't moved very fast. Cross app comments, where I comment on one app and it makes a comment on another app. We have to do that in 2025. We absolutely have to solve that, because what is driving people to go to YouTube or Super Chat?
Mhm.
People are able to have this interactivity. People are able to donate and chat. We already have the functions kind of built. It's not refined yet to be able to chat, to submit tokens or submit satoshis as comments. But the the value, as an example, right now, here's a comment that came in before.
Mhm.
1,111 sats from Silas. He says, at a time, a lot of people are going to Blue Sky, but it's been around for years already. And that way, the AT protocol work is set up for a great future, better than ActivityPub, even though ActivityPub hate to hear that. So that was a comment that came in live on the last show.
Mhm.
And some of this was actually, um, he goes on to say Apple already has 4 different native apps on the Play Store. One has a 2.9 star, and the others aren't better than the 3.6. 2 Apple Music apps, Move It, iPhone, and Beats, and Beats app. I'd say really made PWAs better than a crap native app, by the way. So again, it goes back to, if we have interactivity that the listeners can participate in, that's going to move the whole needle so far. Because number one, what does it do? If you're having consolidated conversations across all apps, what happens then? You have a podcaster that gets excited and starts embracing the other things that we've been trying to accomplish with podcasting 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, does I'm
One
just trying to
drives the
think
other.
of there's an analogy that can be drawn between what we see on the social networks, right? So you post a post onto, let's say, LinkedIn or
Hmm.
Facebook or whatever, and you see a flow of comments. That is a static piece of content, right?
That's
Um,
right.
so, but the commenting comes in over a multiple day period of time,
Right. Right.
and then it kind of fades out. Um,
Sure.
so as you think about it, though, does that translate? Does that approach translate as well to on-demand audio and video as it
I,
does to text?
I think so, because if you can go to those individual solo piles, you
Mhm.
can go to LinkedIn, X, all these platforms, and look at the various comments. If number one, if you posted to social media on this episode, but number two, if you have in all the apps, and again, everyone has to get on board or this doesn't work. If you get on all the apps and there's this interactive flow of commentary that's happened during an episode, and you know that you can contribute to the conversation no matter where you're
Hmm.
at. If you're on Overcast and you're listening, and so, "Wow, that was really cool," and the app has a flow of timeline full of comments that have showed up, you can add to that conversation, and it feeds back to the app that it originated with. So there's a thread
Yeah,
that
right.
could be incredibly valuable. Add the component of being able to have an ecosystem where I like Rob's comment and I can send Rob some money for his comments, or I can send money to the shows and Rob gets a share of that
Right.
because you made it really good. Holy shit, you have this whole new ecosystem now that no one else has.
Well, and you should be
Aren't
able to plug in the comment stream that comes off of these social platforms too, because I know that StreamYard has that ability where you
but
can
there's no
bring in
time. Yeah,
comments.
it does, but the key is it has to coincide with the timeline of the show, you would think, or maybe see the whole thing. We are getting in our own way. Everyone's got these little piles. If you want to grow the app ecosphere and have these apps outside of Apple, outside of Spotify, if you want these all these apps to survive and to thrive, you got to have some cooperation and you need to adapt. And you don't have to share in marketing. You're just sharing in listener comments. That's it. That's the only common thread is the conscious thread. You
Mhm.
get that in you get that in 15 apps. That will change podcasting. That will change podcasting for those listening to audio.
Mhm.
Um, is that way? Do I have time to go to LinkedIn, Twitter, blah 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 blah? Do I have that time to do that as a content creator?
Though the
What if
audience
I
is engaging with that show on all these platforms too. It
don't?
can be live or it could be
Well,
even on demand, right?
they are engaging in YouTube, and probably on Spotify because it's easy. It's very easy to engage mid listen. It's not easy to engage mid listen on a podcast app. Not easy at all.
Yeah.
Cross app comments solves that.
Yeah.
But again, you have to get these app developers that understand the bigger picture here.
So we're only talking about audio at this point, right?
Yeah, well, it could be video too, because the modern podcast apps support video. So it could be a combination thereof.
So they could make a connection to the X's comment API and Facebook's comment
The challenge
API.
is I don't think there's anything that is a timeline. It would be a part of a comment, but the value is I send a timestamp. I'm able to timestamp in the content where I made the comment about something. And if someone sees something, they could jump to that. There's just so much value there
Yeah.
for building the ecosystem, not only to get listener engagement, tie in monetization. It's kills two or three birds in one stone. The
Yeah.
mechanism has already been defined. It's just getting people to implement it.
Right.
Um,
In a
if they
world that is increasingly becoming fragmented.
fragmented, they can still remain fragmented. You can have
Oh, and it
Overcast, you
probably
can
will.
have Pocket Cast, you can have Fountain, you can have all these apps that are fragmented apps, but keep the comments centralized.
Right.
Holy crap!
If you can, yeah. Yeah.
If you can, and it's that's to me is would be if I could have one dream feature for the entire 2025 is that mass adoption. I think it would change. I think it would force those other platforms to potentially play ball. And if
Mhm.
Apple saw big adoption on 15 apps that had cross app comments, they may not because of a privacy thing, but wow, the power there would be huge.
Yeah,
What
because
are
I
some of your other predictions, Rob?
do you see especially on big shows, do you see a lot of comment streams on podcasts? in Apple?
I don't think there's no mechanism, just review. There's
No,
no
just the a quantity of people actually commenting about episodes that they watch. I was just
well,
curious.
you know, and I both know that's very hard right now. If we have people that email the show, and the only reason is because we share our email,
Yeah.
and a small percentage of shows are going to um, a small percentage of listeners are going to comment. Just a small number. It's just the way it is because it's hard. It's a separate process. They have to open their browser. They have to figure out, oh, it was geeknews at gmail.com or it was rob at robgreenlee.com. And then they have to type it out, the comment. But
Yeah.
imagine being in the app, listening to the show right now live or listening to the show later. And I'm talking about something that intrigues them. And all they have to do is just tap on their app and leave a comment.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just I happened to go to the Joe Rogan podcasts and Apple podcasts and just
Yeah.
looked
But
at the
there's
amount of
reviews.
well, it's ratings is all it is. It doesn't
Yeah.
give you a count
Yeah. And it's
on
just, that's just a
comments.
ratings thing. That's a one and done.
So there's there appears to be a lot of comments in here and ratings. I mean, he's got 200,000 ratings in here, but that's a for that show, I think that's a pretty low number.
But that's a one and done. Give it a 3 star. You can't make multiple ratings on Apple. You
Mhm.
do it one time for the lifetime of the show. I'm talking about this ongoing conscious stream
Yeah.
of commentary,
Okay.
across all platforms. Uh, that, to, you know, I'm ho-
Yeah.
people are pushing for it, but again, really slow. And we have to quit thinking about being in our. Sometimes you have to do stuff for the common good. Why did we implement all the podcasting 2.0 stuff at Blueberry? We did it for the common good.
Right.
I want to help make sure that we are ready to rock and roll when everyone else catches up.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I agree. It'd be cool to have that
and,
capability.
and it just takes two apps to start. Two apps do the link up, and that's big news. Wow, you
But
can make a comment on Pocket Cast, and you can make a comment on Fountain, and those comments show up on both apps. And then someone else, oh, I want to be part of the party. And
mhm.
then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then boom, 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 it's solved
Yeah.
because you're not part of the cool kids club of doing something cool and innovative. And developers and marketeers are two different folks. My developers like to do a lot of stuff, and my marketing team likes to do a lot of stuff. But my marketing team drives what the developers do. Most
Yeah.
app based are not marketing first. They are developer based first, and then marketing second. So um,
So how would a app like a listening app look at that opportunity as a benefit to them? Do you
I think
think?
that that's a huge news. I think two apps put their heads together and say, "Hey, look what we've got," and publicize that. And companies like mine come on and tell podcasters, "Listen, here's something new. We would include that in a newsletter. We would, and the more parties that got out, then it's a story.
So
Then it
so would the podcast hosting apps or the hosting platforms like Blueberry, they could also consolidate those comments
absolutely,
in the hosting platform's
that's
interface
right.
because they could
We could
tap into the same
we
shared
could tap into the
API,
same
right?
thing and put that right in, and there could be a reply button right in our platform for hosts to come in and say, and just they wouldn't even need to do it in an app. They could do it right in our platform. They could reply to every show comment there was. And that's a dream. And
Mhm.
here's a cool thing. Um, that would feed back into the ecosystem. And if you have a platform like TrueFans, guess what? That commentary resides on TrueFans too. That whole
Yeah.
and podcasting 2.0 is already doing this to an extent
So
for those that are participating.
so all of the shares that happen through the platform don't have to go through a central
No,
repository. They all get
no.
shared through a shared connection to APIs, right?
It's
Is that
basically podcasting 2.0 has, and again, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's, and this is going to make some people roll their eyes, but it's blockchain based.
oh,
So
okay.
the
Okay, it's like a
commentary goes,
ledger of sorts
yeah, the
that
commentary
that
goes to the,
tracks each of the and since that blockchain is open, then it
Mhm.
can be shared to anyone that connects to it.
And
Right.
Dave, if I just explained it wrong, I forgive
Well,
me,
I'm
but
sure we did.
that's,
I'm sure we
that's
slaughtered it,
my
Todd.
understanding.
Yeah.
But anyway, that of course, and so there does have to be a centralized place to have this stuff, but it's already established. And
Stored, and then
companies are buying,
anybody can tap into that to pull it
right.
into their own app.
And we're writing a check every month to support podcasting 2.0 to make sure the servers stay online. So the
Yeah.
ecosystem, not only that, it goes
Yeah.
back to the bigger picture. Whereas if the listeners or the podcasters set a split to go to Podcast Index,
Mhm.
anytime the monetization piece goes in, it helps pay for the service that's supporting this stuff.
Yeah.
We just all need to understand how do we survive? You know, Dave Weiner making his complaints. How do we survive? We have to work together.
Yeah, there has to be some place where that happens.
And it's
Where is that?
happening.
Yeah.
It's happening, but we just need the developers to get off their coalies, and that's
And
a word that means your buttocks get off your
getting these
Ocolie.
other companies to talk to other competitors is probably where the challenge is, right?
Well, I think this is a competitive advantage for apps to do this. And I think it would be incredible to
Yeah.
advance, and it leads to other things.
But
So
but wouldn't this be one of the first times that like Pocket Casts did a co-development with
it's not
with
it's not even,
like a like an
believe it or
Overcast or
not,
something like that?
believe it or not,
Trying to
it's not even a co-development. It's already established. All they got to do is
just
implement it,
plug into it. That's all
plug
they have to
into it.
do is just plug into it.
Yeah.
Right.
But if two of them did it at the same time and said, "Hey, we're supporting. You see a comment come here, it's going to come over there." Doesn't matter what's happening on the back end.
So if one listening app does it, but nobody else does it,
It's worthless.
then it's not very useful, right?
No, it's not useful. It's only useful when you have mass adoption. And I think TrueFans has adopted it. Podcasting Index has adopted it. So,
So the more apps that plug into it, the more value it has. So at
more
the
value.
beginning, there's kind of a very narrow
Right.
value, which may get in the way of it getting traction, right?
Well, you
Yeah.
know, do you want to
Mhm.
fight off the beast?
The beast,
And I should say plural, beast with an S.
the beast, right? Yeah,
Um, so we have to have enhanced interactivity.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
And I think it would transform podcasts into more dynamic, interactive experiences. It
Mhm.
would really. I didn't come up with this. Adam Curry came up with this, or
Oh,
someone
yeah,
came up with
yeah,
this. This
yeah,
wasn't my idea. I'm just advocating for it.
yeah.
I think one of my last predictions is I think we're going to see a explosion again because of the economy change and the perception of what's going to happen with the economy. I think we're seeing a lot of business podcasts to launch that haven't launched, because I think they're fully understanding that AI search is screwing them. They're going to have other ways to that you have. if you don't have a social presence on every platform, and you don't have a message on YouTube, you don't have a message on a podcast, you are going to be LOSST. No, oh my God,
LOST, lost.
LOST. Oh,
Yeah.
here's my, yeah. You are going to be lost because search is going to lose you.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
And that's where kind of AI can come in with this too and help with
Well,
that.
AI is going to screw search. So you have to have an online presence. You have to.
And if you do queries in Chat GPT and I believe in even Gemini with Google, it comes up with attribution source
But again,
links.
it's
Right.
not like Google, and it's limited in response. So if you are in those results, you are lost. So you
If
have
you're
to have
not in those results, you mean? Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a lot of search results. I'm saying, holy shit, because
Oh,
not
in the AI search? Is that what you're saying?
that's right. You
Okay.
look at AI search and stuff that you trend for your keyword ranking. And if you don't show up in that, you're done. DONE, done. You do not have a presence on the web no more. It's big. It's a big deal. So if you don't have a podcast, if you don't have all this other stuff on social media, no one will find you.
Right. So if we do a search in what Chat
We're just doing
GPT for
ChatGPT.
this, I
But
mean,
think about a business, Rob.
like what would you search for in relation to this show for us to
I would
analyze?
probably discussions on podcasting. What are the best shows for discussion on podcasting?
Yeah, I think we've
And
done
maybe that
this.
is, or what are the best podcast shows about podcast?
Podcast show. Yeah.
Yeah, what
That's-
are the best podcasts about podcasts? Maybe that's the search result.
about podcasts. So this is in Chat GPT
Search
for point Omni or whatever it
or
is.
whatever it is for, yeah.
Um, well, of course, it comes up with ours as number one. So because it's my
Well,
account, probably.
yeah. So what was the search term that? Let me go over here and
I said
find
best podcasts about podcasts.
podcast. Okay, let me go over here and do it on mine. Let's see here. I want to do search the web best podcast on podcast. I'm just going to use
And
that.
then and it ranks our show number one, The Feed, the official podcast from Lipson, number two, Dave Jackson School Podcasting, number three, and Buzzcast, number four, Podcasting 2.0, five, Podcraft, number six, Pod News Weekly Review, seven,
So
podcast editors, Mastermind, number eight.
ours in my search, it gave me two results, and New Media Show doesn't show up in either. So, and it shows
It's
a show that is not producing podcast episodes anymore. So, so again, it
It's
varies.
biased towards the interests of the user too.
So I think what you have is this. Here's the realization: as more businesses understand their web traffic's dropping, they're going to have to adopt a more extensive social media. You're going to need to be on Reddit. You're going to have again. You got to have all this stuff now that's external to be found or to be heard. A big national business is not going to be affected, but um, if you do a web search on, say, in your town, what is there more than one business of, Rob? How many? Okay, I'm going to put in.
Yeah, like a restaurant or something like
I'm
that.
going to say recommend a lawyer in Coldwater, Michigan. And Coldwater's a small town. And I'm doing a web search. It lists, you might consider, if you're seeking legal assistance, it gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 results. And of those attorneys, I know I'm familiar with 3 of these firms. So there's 8, which is not bad, not a bad list for a small town, but I guarantee you there's more than 8 lawyers. So maybe, and these are all references from lawyer.com and other places, but what if you don't show up in those searches no more? It used to be you could scroll deeper, and you can't scroll deeper. So what if you're a lawyer and you're not in this list? Then
Yeah, so I don't know how you game
you don't game.
the
There's no
the AI
gaming. You
AI
don't.
platforms to rank you in
There,
a query.
there's strategies, and we've been doing those strategies for the past year and a half. But again, it's about being wide. It's simple. You have to be seen everywhere. You have to be seen in more places. Thus, if you're a business, that's why I made the prediction that businesses, if you don't have an online podcast, YouTube channel, everything, um, you might not be found anymore.
Yeah, because
As
it gives
people
you
shift.
what you think you want to find, not,
Exactly what you
and that's,
necessarily want to find.
yeah, because I changed my query to top podcasts about podcasts without bias towards me.
And it probably removed it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, um, the dynamics of search are going to change dramatically. And OpenAI has already said they're going to make search free for all of their customers. And then now what am I going to have to do? I have to start buying advertising with OpenAI? Well, I'm sure that's what's coming next.
Yeah.
So the open web is as important as it's been since ever it's in inviction or beginning, but kingmakers are the real gatekeepers now with search engines and the AI search. They are the gatekeepers to traffic to your website.
Okay, I changed the query to be top podcasts about podcasts based on audience size.
Mm.
I,
How does it know that?
I know. Well, that's the only other metric, right?
Yeah.
So, what other qualitative search query factors?
We don't know. We don't know what they're using for a qualitative. We have no idea.
I mean,
Again, it's getting data.
and what is considered a top anything, right?
Well, maybe that's where, again, new media show, a top podcast about podcasts, and the metadata, might influence that. Will it? Who knows? It doesn't influence the search engines because the search engines have figured out how to, to basically avoid the fluff that we've all used for years to try to get traffic to our websites.
Okay, I changed the query to podcasts about podcasts based on audience size. So I removed the word top,
Yeah.
and it came up with a classification based on a list that has large audience, and
Uh-huh.
then a short list of medium size audience,
Okay.
and then another list says niche audience,
Oh, did we
and
make any
then
of those?
yeah, and then one that said emerging audience.
Oh, how does it know?
I don't know.
Which
I
list did
don't
we
know,
end up
Todd.
in?
We ended up in the medium sized,
Well,
just
considering,
below Buzzcast, which is the Buzzsprout podcast.
okay, so Buzzsprout is talking to their podcasters.
Right.
Let
Which people in public can consume that too.
Yeah.
So
So, you asked me to look at our stats, and we're still hovering 14, 15,000. Um, so does that Are we small at 14 or 15,000 people that listen to a podcast about podcasts?
I know what kind of time frame is that?
Oh, we've been running those numbers for years.
No, but is that like per episode or monthly or
Oh yeah, per episode.
per episode? Okay. Yeah, because it shows here large audience is the podcast host podcast. Well, that's extremely meta. And then the School
I've
of
never
Podcasting
listened to,
with Dave Jackson.
but
Um,
we'd have to ask Dave what his audience size is.
and then Podland News is the third one on the large audience list.
Oh, so that's Cridlin, right?
Yeah.
So they do it daily. So I would assume that their audience is pretty big. Of course, you
Yeah.
can look at OP3 and actually see how big Podland is.
So it gets back to, and it was the same thing that happened with Google search too. It was really, what queries, what prompts
Mhm.
are people using to find
Yeah.
content in there? I don't see any links to anything in this list. I guess if I added, um, if I added the term add links,
I
let's
was
see
gonna
if it
try to
actually
find.
pulls the links to those shows. And I found it occasionally where it will actually make a mistake. It'll pull something
yeah.
different. Okay, so I had the same query, and all I did was add the words add links. And it actually
Mhm.
pulled up a categorization, or actually a list of shows, and it actually shows the cover art image with the results.
And where they link to. They show the reference information.
It actually, it doesn't actually show the actual URL. So let's see if I click on it. It doesn't actually go anywhere.
Spurlock, you need a search on your website so I can search for a show. I don't see
Yeah.
a search button. I was going to look at Podland's numbers. These are all public numbers, but how do I get to it if I'm not using an API?
Yeah, but I found it interesting that it was pulling the album art from the podcast in the chat GPT results right next to the short description with the link.
Mhm.
So that is more like a search query.
Yeah. Okay. So here is OP3 analytics for Pod News. They've had 1,281 downloads in the last 7 days, 5,500 downloads in the last 30, 5,667 downloads in November. So, compared to that, we're definitely bigger than their show. Just by the OP3 data. So, but still, that's considering he's got how many people who subscribe to the newsletter, well, that's still a pretty great number for him.
Yeah.
Not many shows are getting 5,000, so, he's got a good tuned in audience there.
So this output from Chat GPT looks increasingly like a web page.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And thus my prediction on why search is going to fundamentally, and it already is changing. You look at Perplexity as well.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see in my stats logs, I'm looking at it very heavily. And by the way, we're way over on time.
Oh, we are.
I'm looking at those referrals, and I got a lot of stuff coming to the website that has no referral data. And OpenAI is purposely not showing if you're getting traffic from them.
Oh, okay.
And you can experiment on your own. All you have to do is find some obscure page on your website that gets very, very little web traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Do a search query in ChatGPT that drives that result.
Right.
So you can find that exact page and then you click on the link in ChatGPT. Then you go to your web logs and look. And okay, that traffic isn't defined where it came from. So
Yeah, you just increasingly it looks like you have to be very, very specific to it.
and
And it
hence
gets back to prompts, and it will deliver to you what you specifically
what you
ask for.
specifically asked for, yeah. But if you ask a question like, "What is the best podcast hosting company?" which is subjective, then you can see where I start getting because it doesn't give me Blueberry in my results. Maybe it will for you, but again, it's pulling from webs. So if you've had a bunch of web reviews that ranked you high, you may show up in the list. So again, it's about being wide. It's about being seen more places.
Yeah, I did that same query, Todd. It was best podcast hosting company,
Yeah,
and it came up with Buzzsprout number one, Libsyn 2, Captivate 3, Podbean
yep,
4, Anchor
yep.
5, Transistor. Well, Anchor isn't even a
Right.
thing.
Anchor's gone. But again, the model is old, so yeah.
Uh, Red Circle 7, Spreaker 8, SoundCloud. SoundCloud's even coming up on the list.
Yeah. So
9.
now, but if you ask it, what is the best podcast host for WordPress? And we were right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's again, it's how the question is asked.
Right.
Yeah. So again, if you're a business and you relied to be in that first 10 or 15 search results in Google, and
Mm-hmm.
people are looking at this data, and if you're specific enough in ChatGPT, you'll get the answer you're looking for to an extent. But what are you missing? And that's the worry. What are you missing?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I did that same query, best podcast hosting for WordPress, and it does bring up Blueberry
yeah,
number one.
that's right. So again, it's because that's what everyone's talked about us for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some stake in that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, I think anyway, that's pretty much I have more on my prediction list, but
Yeah.
Rob,
Go ahead if you want to mention
I
a
know,
couple more quickly.
let's see here. Let me look and make sure I've got everything I wanted covered. Yeah, I've got everything I wanted to cover. So I went through all
Okay.
my stuff here.
Okay.
How about you? Anything additional?
Yeah, I was just going to mention. I think we're going to see a lot more global expansion of the podcast medium on the listenership side and also on the business side too. I know that I heard some a lot of discussion that the business side of podcasting is not really very developed outside of the U.S. I mean, it is in Canada and Europe and places like that, but once you get beyond those Western countries, it becomes challenging.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the best practices that we've come accustomed to here in the U.S. are just not built out in those markets. Um, but it's probably coming. So,
So,
all right,
ladies and gentlemen,
we can call an
what
end.
are your predictions?
Yeah, send us an
You
email.
know,
Let us know what
yeah,
you think, or
absolutely.
post online and send us a link to it. Right.
And let's see here. Obviously, you can send Rob an email at robgreenlee@gmail.com.
Yep.
And let's see here. I'm Todd at blueberry.com. So easy to do that. Of course, we always want you to make sure that you're following us live and that you follow our social as well. Yes, I do have lower thirds set up. I just haven't been clicking them.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. I only stayed up for 5 seconds. I got to change the setting on that. At NMS Podcast on X. But I don't know. It's been an interesting year. It's been an interesting year.
Yeah, it is definitely been an interesting year. So we'll see if 2025 turns out to be a better one for podcasting as we kind of transition into something.
Well, I think I have a couple of predictions that I'm not going to make. Um, but I would suspect we'll see some. I'll just leave it at that. I think we may see some business failures in 2025.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Todd, that that will likely happen. There's clues to some significant platforms out there that have been involved in podcasting that are maybe not doing so well.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and even some emails that I've gotten about basically, hey, we'd like to talk. So when people are sending emails and wanting to talk, there's potential of
yeah,
someone not doing financially well.
and the and and the layoffs and the hiring continue,
Hmm.
that's the thing. So it's definitely a reshuffling of the deck that's going on in the medium right now.
Yep,
Um, Transition is happening. So,
indeed.
yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on X, at Geek News at geeknews.chat on Mastodon. Rob?
Yeah, I'm on X as well at Rob Greenlee and got my own YouTube channel, which I'm regularly updating with content to that at Rob Greenlee as well. And then you want to send me an email, actually, you just showed it on the screen, Rob Greenlee at gmail.com will actually work as well.
Yep. Let's see here. I'll make sure I didn't miss any comments. New phone. Who's that? I don't know. I heard an AI pod. Okay. 3 to 4K. Yeah, and Rick says I'm thrilled if someone buys me a coffee. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
That's where it is. I think we had quite a people watching on YouTube, but not a lot of commentary. Y'all must be sleepy. So, all
Right.
right, we'll get out of here. And yes, if you have any influence on Riverside, easily switching on screens would be greatly appreciated. Not the kludge way they've got it right now. That would solve my issues. Otherwise, maybe OBS is in my future. Okay, Rob, thanks.
All right.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. After
Uh,
the new year, right?
yep. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year, everyone.
And
We'll see you next time.
Podfest is coming up soon. So
That's right. We'll talk about that on the next show.
we're going to be doing an episode of this show at Podfest. So I'm excited
And
for
have
that.
you been working on a guest list?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay, good. Rob
And with all
handles
the
that.
other stuff I'm doing, right?
Yeah, yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks.
All
We'll
right.
see you next time.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye.
Yep. Bye. See here. How do I stop going live on this? If I click that.
Yeah, there should
Oh.
be a.
Oh, how do I? Oh, there's down the bottom. Stop. All right, make sure we're off the air. Waiting for the stream to catch up on Restream. Wow, that's taken a long time to
Yeah, I'm all uploaded,
shut
I
off.
think. I'm all
What'd you
uploaded.
say?
I said I'm all uploaded, I believe.
Okay. Why is that still showing live? The stream is off. Did it actually end the show? That's curious because